This is our 9th listening session. Just want to take a moment today to acknowledge how difficult the week was. I think everybody's feeling it. And I'm really curious to hear from you about what the mood is in DC given this week's events. I know in Oakland, I guess I was a little sort of relieved on, believe it was Tuesday night, when the peaceful protest turned into a dance party. So at least here the tensions broke a little bit, but I just know everybody's feeling a lot right now. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So just so you know, your audio is muted, and you have the power to mute it and unmute it. You guys are all pros at this by now. So just to let you know that the mic icon is down the bottom of your screen, and there's also a chat box, and you can feel free to chat things into chat. And as Eric Flores did, Eric, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We are recording. I think, Melissa, you want to get the recording is going, and I'll send you slides if you guys, we could send you the slides. We probably won't send the recording, but we don't, unless somebody really wants to and really wants to share as well as the slides. So with that, just a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're going to hear what's new for federal policy and get a perspective from DC, from Ann Sullivan, from Madison Service Group. We've been working with her for, I think, at least the past 8 years that I've been at Cameo. I think the first year I was at Cameo, we did not work with Ann, but she's been working with us a long time and really looks out for the sector and small business and micro business. And did Mark make it on? I'm not sure if he's able to make it on today. We might hear a little bit from Mark. Then I'm going to give a little bit of state policy update, and I know we have some people on the line who can contribute to that as well. And then we'll go a little bit local on business as it could be with Sandy Sokut and Ken Stram, who are here in San Francisco and have been thinking a lot about reopening and helping businesses reopen. So just to let everybody know what we are doing right now. We've been participating in a weekly 30-minute update with Small Business Majority. There's not a lot of time for questions on that one. It's really quick. But so if in case anybody's interested, you can email me and I'll connect you with that one. And just want to let everybody know, we did postpone our advocacy day until July, the end of July, early August. And we will, the legislative session is really different this year, let's just say. I'll get to a little bit of that in the state update. And the attention just isn't there. So we've postponed it a little bit. And just to let everybody know, we do have an updated resource page that we continually update with like the PPP loan forgiveness, all sorts of things. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann, and I just have some details, Ann, up here, as you can see, about one of the things you're going to talk about. But I can stop sharing my screen for a while, and just let me know when you want me to pop that back up, okay?
That's fine. I'm just going to be talking from my notes. So the attention, whatever the issue is of the moment, completely sucks up the attention and time in the legislative, in the legislative bodies, and also the agencies, frankly. So this week, it really was all about racial justice and social justice. The other thing that always happens is that people immediately try to see what kind of legislation can they pass that would be helpful. So there's been a lot of ideas, a lot of positioning, a lot of folks trying to figure out how they can help. Some that are not, frankly, so helpful. But just say that also the other part of Washington is, you know, our protests are bigger, the police response is bigger, like everything is just magnified. So it really, just to give you a flavor of what it's like, it just really sucks the air out of everything, you know, and this has been a particularly tough time. House Democrats are working on legislation to tackle police brutality and racial issues. They want to do something, and they'll do something in the next couple of weeks. What it is exactly, I don't know, and I don't think either do they. But know that they are going to be working on a response and some legislation that they feel would be helpful with respect to police actions. On the Republican side, Senators Grassley, Tim Scott, Joni Ernst, and James Langford have introduced the Walter Scott Notification Act, which would require states receiving federal law enforcement funding to report details on officer-related shootings. So they feel that in addition to anything else, that they have to know, there should be an accounting for the dollars that they get and what the departments, because they're local and state, or local, they are not under the federal jurisdiction, but the hook there is that, well, they get money from the feds, so there should be some accountability there. There's also a bipartisan bill introduced by Senator Rubio, Harris, and Booker, who want to establish a commission devoted to uplifting Black communities in 2019. It should actually be 2020 now. And he's working to and they're working to pass it in the Senate through an expedited process. So that doesn't sound like much, maybe, but a commission has been on many fronts really, really helpful in terms of identifying issues and identifying solutions. They hear from, a commission hears from hundreds of stakeholders, all, you know, everybody that has something to say basically has a forum. And it's actually been really helpful with respect to going forward with some tough issues. So I'm hoping that that action will happen. So look for much more to come on that. There's nothing specifically related to small businesses and the, you know, racial injustice, but that doesn't mean somebody hasn't thought of something, but I just haven't identified any of it yet. I'm just going to go, I'm going to move to PPP. I think you had a slide up, but I'm just going to talk from my notes because frankly, at Friday at 4 p.m., my brain is not always working particularly well. It's Eastern. So let me just say that the identical bill that we described last week passed the Senate. And it's really interesting because, you know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I remember briefing, I think on this call, or one of the cameo calls, that, you know, Mitch McConnell said, absolutely not, we are not doing any more legislation, blah, 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 blah. And I remember being very skeptical of that pronouncement. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. You know, as partisan as they all want to be, when it comes to helping small business, it's really not a partisan issue. And, you know, so if they need help, they need help. So the changes that were made were all things that Cameo supported and the small business community in general supported. It basically gave more flexibility going forward. I do want to say that the one thing that didn't change is that June 30th is the deadline for any new applications for PPP money. The changes that were made were how it's spent and how it's allocated. So, and the forgiveness. So what it did was extended the loan forgiveness period to 24 months or December 31st, whichever comes first. And that's important because the forgiveness is based on, were you able to retain your employees? And payroll is very important. A lot of people are not back to work. And so they were facing not being able to have their loans forgiven. So that's a big help. Also, it extends a period in which loans can be forgiven if the businesses restore staffing or salary levels that were previously reduced from June 30 to December 31st, right? So again, a lot of people said, well, we can't, our loans won't be forgiven because we can't get our folks back to work right now. And so this allows forgiveness to continue, to be a possibility, even though maybe you don't have your staff back right now. The 8-week period really compressed it. So now, again, it's December 31st, so that gives much more breathing room. Why was it done only 8 weeks before? Because nobody knew how long the pandemic would last and what the effects were. So they thought they gave plenty of time. It turns out they did not. And so that's what this correction's about. It also changed the formula for how much has to be devoted to payroll and how much can be for other expenses. It went from 75% payroll expenses to 60% payroll expenses. That's what the borrower has to show, is that of the loan that they received, 60%, now it's 60%, will go toward payroll and the rest will go to other expenses. If that formula is followed, then again, the loan is forgivable. It extended the loan maturity period to 5 years instead of the 2-year deadline that SBA set, so it moved it to 5. It also repeals a provision from the CARES Act that barred companies with forgiven PPP loans from deferring their payroll tax payments, so now they can. And it allows borrowers to defer principal and interest payments on PPP loans until the SBA compensates lenders for any forgiven amounts instead of what was a 6-month deferment period. So that was another change as well. So they made these changes. Everybody was asking for it. The Senate was inclined to make their own changes, put their own stamp on legislation. But in the end, politics just dictated that they hurry up and get this done. And so that's exactly what happened. And it was a little tough on them because they swallowed a House bill, which, goes against the grain of the Republican-controlled Senate, seeing that the House is run by Democrats. So in any event, a little hope there in terms of how people really can work together when they have to, despite their partisan inclinations. No more money was allocated, by the way, about $130 billion. It still remains from that second round of $320 billion. I personally know of a lot of companies that really got worried when the SBA put out their kind of stern, we're going to audit people language. And a lot of people returned the money, even though, in my opinion, they would have needed to, but they weren't going to be subject to a government audit. So they did. And so there's much more money in there, frankly, and a lot of it comes from small businesses that should have hung on to it, but were too worried about getting in some kind of fiscal trouble with the federal government. That's an unfortunate thing that's happened. Just other updates.
Are you going on from a different topic, Ann? Are you going on? Because we have
not really, just talking about a few hearings.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a few questions.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the hearings that are going on, and Senator Cardin, Senator Rubio sent a letter to Treasury Secretary and SBA Administrator urging the agencies to provide additional data and reporting on PPP, the EIDL, and the Small Business Debt Relief Programs. Everybody's wondering what in the heck is going on with EIDL, and frankly, there's not a lot of answers right now. So the committees, that's gotten their attention, and they've asked for numbers and what's going on. The House Financial Services Consumer Protection Financial Institutions Subcommittee held a hearing on Wednesday on promoting inclusive lending during the pandemic through community development, CDFIs, and minority depository institutions. And there's a hearing memo, if you go to that website, that's really very, very good, has a lot of really good statistics. And then lastly, the Federal Reserve is just released its FAQ on its Main Street program, which is run by the Federal Reserve in Boston. If you go to the website, you can pretty easily spot it, the FAQ, although it's not really, I can't find anywhere where they're actually taking applications. So I don't think it's rolled out quite yet, but now they've at least released all the rules and FAQs regarding that program. It's really geared to from 500,000 on up, so it's geared toward large small businesses or mid-sized businesses. And I'll stop there.
So we have a couple of questions on the PPP, and then we might go back to the Booker Commission. But when does the new PPP legislation take effect, and does the SBA have a date to publish new forms?
So the president signs it, and I think he did sign it. Yeah,
he signed
it.
So
it is, yeah, this morning. So it is in effect. Are they going to publish new forms? They're going to have to. They have to update their forms, and I would expect that would be early next week.
I read somewhere something about the loan, like if they already got the loans, that this, like this is only for new loans, or does it apply to all the loans?
It applies to all the loans.
Okay, so
there was language in there saying,
okay,
you know, if you got a loan and you got it under the 8-week period, no, now the extended period applies. Yeah. Okay. The only thing that doesn't extend is the application deadline of June 30.
Right. So if you have clients that are looking for loans, they should still be able to get a PPP loan. And we have a couple of those lenders. We have the lenders that we know about on our website. The Main Street program, and that's not really directed though at small businesses, right? It's for a little bit larger.
It's large small businesses. So I know some small businesses, you know, that qualify under the definition that might have received like 500,000 in PPP loans, for example. So if you're a larger small business, it'll affect you, but not micro businesses.
Great. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. People want to go back to the Booker Commission, if that's okay with you. But I had one clarifying question before we do that. The hearing document that you said that has great statistics, that was in the Senate Small Business Committee?
House Financial Services.
Oh, okay, House Financial Services.
Maxine Waters is the chair.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I know Melissa is gonna look on that House Financial Services Committee. Okay.
And I can send you the link.
Okay.
I'm looking for the.
Because I think people would be interested in that.
I'll copy the link if I can figure. Yeah.
Okay,
if
that's
I can
fine.
Figure out how to put this in. Okay.
Great. Okay. You're getting to be a pro, Ann. I know. Dragging you, but I hope
the screen is a little. It looks a little different to me than the 5 other platforms that I've figured out. So.
Right. Exactly.
Here's the chat box is down. I thought it was in a lot of them. It's up on the right hand side.
Yeah.
I see where it is.
Great.
Okay.
Let's see. My question was Booker Commission. Tara wants to know if there is a bill number associated with that. Is that as a bill, or how does that work?
Let me just look to see if I have a bill number yet.
Let's give her a moment for that.
City of Hollister.
Mm,
24252.
I think when I don't think we had a number yesterday, but I
Okay.
don't know about today.
Okay. When we have that, we will let everybody know what that is.
Yeah.
So, and then the other question is, do you know and have any idea how we can nominate candidates for the Booker Commission? Is that something how we could
So that
support candidates?
happens so that happens after, after it passes. And the way and the mechanism to get candidates is to go through your congressional folks,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you in the Bay Area want to give those to Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters and
Leave her alone.
Great.
Do not touch her. Do not touch her. She has nothing. Do not touch her. Sir. Leave her alone.
Wow. I don't know what that was. I hope everybody is okay.
safe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can you mute?
Yes,
Heidi, can you mute?
Yeah, we did. We muted
Okay.
that person. I hope everything is okay. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Does anybody have anything else to ask Ann? I have some numbers on the updated numbers, just actually from last week on the PPP and the EIDL. Does anybody have any of those? Any questions for Ann? Sorry, before we go on to that and to go a little bit into the state policy. All right. Oh, go ahead, Ann.
Heidi, I still hear that conversation going on.
No, I think that's actually my husband in the background.
Somebody else
talking on the phone.
Right.
He was kind of loud. I think that yeah, I don't hear that. I hear him, and that's probably what you hear.
Okay, well then I feel better.
Yeah, he was just being loud. He is in the other room. He just moved away. Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Great. All right. Well, I'm just going to thank you, Ann, for that. If there's no more questions, I am going to go back to sharing, sharing my screen and just show everybody the numbers that we have that have been given out for, yes, this is right, for EIDL and PPP, and for California. EIDL, you could see there's been 707,000 EIDL loans approved in California. That's 123,000. So about a little over half of the EIDL money has gone through. I couldn't find the advances amount, so I just left it from the last number I had. And California's gotten about almost a fifth of those loans, not quite a fifth. For PPP, this is both tranches of PPP. There's been about 4.5 million in loans, 4.5 million loans issued and $510 billion. California's got almost proportional amount of money for that, so 524,000 loans and 66.3 billion. Average PPP loan size is 114,000 and the EIDL is 79. I know in the first tranche, the average PPP loan size was over 200,000. So it's come down quite a bit. So that's good. Oh, I have not been sharing. So I will, let me just share that real quickly with y'all so you could see the numbers. All right. I'm just going to leave this up here while we talk about the state update. Just very quickly. So the big thing happening in Sacramento right now is the budget. The budget needs to be passed by June 15th. We have the governor's budget that came out a couple weeks ago, and then this week the Assembly and the Senate agreed to sort of their joint proposal. There's some discrepancies in between the two budgets, and so what is going to happen is they're having a big three negotiation, which is the Speaker Pro Tem, the Speaker of the House, and the Governor's office. So that's Senator Atkins and Assemblyman Rendon, Speaker Rendon, and Governor Newsom. So the three of them are going to get together and hash it out and come out with a budget. There will be, and I'm not 100% sure on these details, so I think Tony Simons is still on the call if she wants to chime in on anything and correct me. But I know they're going to pass a budget June 15th, and then there's going to be some room to make some amendments. People are waiting for the income tax numbers to come out, which I think come out sometime in July, and then they'll finalize that budget in August. Is that right? Did I get that right, Tony? Tony might not be on. So the dates I'm not 100% sure on, but I do know that that's a little bit of the process. Oh, I got it right. All right. So the small business impact, the governor, as we talked about the last listening session, the governor's budget was pretty good for small businesses. Took a lot of what was released in the January budget and really kept it. Fully funding small business assistance centers, the federally approved ones, the women's business centers, small business development centers, PTACs, the procurement technical assistance centers, minority business development agencies, the manufacturers. So all those business centers and that money that we fought so hard a couple of years ago, that is still intact. So that's really good. And they're adding another $50 million to the iBank state loan guarantee program. So that helps get access to capital out to those riskier loans. So that's good. What's not in the Assembly budget, but was in the governor's budget, is the DBO expansion, reorganization, whatever you want to call it, to the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. That is something that Cameo's really excited about and was really happy to see, because it would really help with the predatory lending that we worked so hard on a couple years ago as well. So we're working to try and get to the speaker, and if anybody has any relationship with Rendon's office or Holly Mitchell's office, and I think we've got the ins with Tony Atkins' office, so we don't necessarily need an in there, but if anybody's got an in with any of those offices, it'd be greatly appreciated. The more the merrier. We can use any and all relationships there. We want to tell them how important this is, especially, now predators, see crisis as an opportunity. If you and the other thing I would request, if you have heard of any, if you had heard of any things, any stories from your clients that have faced predatory practices from predatory lenders in COVID, we'd love to hear them. One of my big things about the COVID and opening it up to the non-bank lenders was that it was kind of a lead generator for those organizations, whether or not they were going to make the loans or not, or even if they did, they make the good PPP loan, but then once where small business is going to go, they're going to go back to the lender that gave them the PPP loan. You know, I was a little disappointed in that, and that, you know, that's something that, not a little disappointed, a lot disappointed, but that's something that is of great concern to us. So the DBO expansion would help, would give DBO the power to regulate the predatory lenders, and so we want that to happen. So that's a lot of our effort right now, is trying to get that in the budget. So does anybody, Tony, do you want to unmute yourself and add anything about what's happening at the state level right now? I mean, about the budget process or anything like that? Tony, maybe you're having trouble with your, I'm going to unmute you in case you want to say something. Okay. Oh, she's not near a mic. Okay, great. Well, does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any stories they want to just share with the group of some of the predatory practices? Has anybody seen anything like that? Predatory investors assembling funds and looking for opportunistic acquisitions. Not sure about lenders. Eric, do you want to unmute yourself and explain what you mean by that? Because I'm not 100% sure.
Sure. Just like in the Great Recession, when a lot of institutional investors bought up residential real estate and converted it from naturally occurring affordable housing to corporately owned residential rentals. We're seeing the same pressures currently. There's a number of funds that are accumulating funds to be in a cash position to take advantage of people who are in difficult situations. So far, we've only seen it in single family residential, but I'm sure we'll see it in multifamily as well.
Just what we need, right?
Pardon me?
Just what we need, more pressure on the housing market.
Yeah, so we're looking for ways to, for nonprofits and affordable housing organizations to raise funds so they can compete with those predatory investors, or provide relief to homeowners that we'd much prefer can just stay in their homes.
Great. Thank you for that. Something else for us to worry about. Is anybody else have any other comments, questions on the state stuff? Great. Well, with that, I want to welcome two people onto the call, Sandy Sokot and Ken Strom, who are here in San Francisco, and they've been thinking a lot about reopening, and they have, Camia's been participating on their calls, and I'm going to turn it over to them to discuss, and I'll tell you their titles in a second, to discuss their efforts and get some feedback. So let's see.
We can introduce ourselves.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourselves? I'm having trouble with I'm having trouble finding my mouse. So
okay, but you'll have our document.
I do. I have your thing all ready to share.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. I'll start. I'm Sandy Sokot. I have kind of a dual identity. I am the director of a program called The World as It Could Be, Human Rights Education Program. We raise awareness about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and its continuing relevance. And that declaration is what was founded under the leadership of Eleanor Roosevelt when the UN was set up after World War II. And it spells out 30 articles of universal rights that every single person should have around the world. And we do this work because we've learned only 7% of the US population knows it exists. So we've been compelled to do what we can to raise awareness of it. I also have been a business services manager or business management consultant and nonprofit consultant since 1984, providing strategic planning and profitability management to small businesses and to nonprofit organizations. I have had the pleasure of being a colleague of Ken Stram's for quite a number of years, and we started talking together actually a couple of years ago about opportunities for businesses to be able to think a little, think strategically about what was possible for them. And we coined this term business as it could be, which is kind of it is connected to the world as it could be, with the idea that there, just as the UDHR provides an aspirational framework of what is possible, that we can think in the business community of what is really possible if we really put our minds and efforts behind that. And with the COVID-19 crisis, what came to a head was the fact that we had the small business community thrown into havoc of how are they going to deal with all the challenges they're facing, and recognizing that even before the crisis, there were problems. The small business community has changed over the years because of how the retail market is affected by online shopping. All kinds of different situations have been challenging business. But now with COVID-19, it became quite extraordinary. And so we wanted to see what we could do to offer some help in how businesses could think a little bit more strategically while they're in the state of how am I going to survive, so that they could actually take some constructive action to not only come out better and in the thoughts of human rights, which I might not have thought of a week ago, we had done this, is how to create businesses that are not only viable. There are articles in the UDHR that say everyone has the right to make a living and everyone has the right to fair compensation, but also how they can be viable and help support a healthy community that provides the best for everybody in it. So that's what's behind our work. We are fortunate that we have as part of our team people at Cameo, Mark Quinn, Mark Herbert, and Heidi. And we are also thrilled that we also have Monica Hudson, who is on this call, who is an associate professor at the University of San Francisco, and she teaches entrepreneurship and organizational behavior and public administration on both the graduate and undergraduate level, and directs the USF's Gellert Family Business Center. And so we've been working on what we could do to offer help, and we'll go over that just a little bit more after Ken says a few words, and then we'll kind of direct you to what we'd like your feedback on today.
Thanks, Andy. Ken Stram. I have a company called Two Bridge Communications, and I have a long background in helping small businesses. I used to work at the Small Business Administration in Washington with Mark Quinn. I was actually in Washington during the Bill Clinton administration. And then I moved out here and I started one of the city's economic development programs for the LGBT community, and also served as a member of the loan committee on working solutions. And just, I have, great respect for all the work that you do. Sandy, should I talk about the examples later? Yeah, okay.
Oh, I thought you did.
Oh, okay. So I think, again, to help encourage, it's so tough right now for small businesses. So how do we get them to focus on, a future that will, because the other crisis that's looming out there is the climate crisis. And so how do we encourage small businesses to be more focused on resiliency, on opportunity? And one of my clients is SF Made, which supports local manufacturers. And so I have this pleasure of talking to manufacturing businesses all the time. And I've been keeping in touch with them during the crisis. And I just wanted to talk about some examples of how these companies have pivoted really quickly to take advantage of opportunities, you know, created by the crisis, or to build stronger community and to give back to the community. And so one sort of the most compelling example is a company called Origin, which is San Francisco based. They made a better 3D printer. Printers are made in San Jose, but they had 50 of them in San Francisco to do testing. And so when COVID happened, they just put their heads together and well, we have 50 3D printers, we can do something. Well, it turns out that those swabs that they need for COVID testing are only made at 2 places around the world. And they're made by injection molding. And so the guys who run Origin sort of took this on and they created a 3D printed swab. I mean, it's complicated because it has to be stiff at one end and bendy at the other. Well, they did this, and now, through open sourcing, so other 3D printing companies are doing the same, and they're delivering hundreds of thousands of these things now a week. So like that's an example that, you know, taking advantage of these opportunities presented by a crisis. Other examples include a printer over in the financial district, Alpha Graphics, and like he lost all of his business right away, but immediately thought, well, businesses are going to need social distancing signs, and restaurants and you know, hospitals will need menus and things that they can wash. So he immediately went into production on these, and he's regained a lot of his business. And then there are the companies like Seven Stills that switched from making beer to making a hand sanitizer. And I could go on and on. Knox Cookies in San Jose lost its business, you know, with corporate clients, but then the corporations started delivering boxes of cookies to their employees who were working from home as appreciation. And again, every time they got a gift box order, they would automatically give a box of cookies to frontline workers. So how do we help all small businesses to think about being resilient, retooling their operations, and being more geared for the future?
And so with that in mind, this music group, what we felt was most important, it's one that people can help make good decisions, is to have good questions to guide something. And so we developed, and I think Heidi's going to share, we have the document, an entire document that lays out the whole concept of and bios of who we all are. But one of the key things that we'd like your feedback on today is we developed 8 questions that we thought, if they could be directed to small businesses, either by the help of a consultant or the organizations to whom they belong, this would help start them on to good decision making for how to go forward. And so I'm going to very briefly outline the thought behind them, and you have them on the list. And essentially, the first was basically, what resources and funds do you need just to remain in business as you are for the next 6 months as you prepare for re-entering? So this is really like, just to stay alive, what do you need? Then, what do you think your clients and customers need from you in order to continue to patronize? So this is now moving forward. What do you think you have to do differently? And given that, what new policies or changes would you have to make to reopen safely and meet these needs? And therefore, what resources do you need? And then, what are things you would like to change about your business, even without this crisis? And or is another way, what opportunity does this situation present to you that could support these changes? And then as another way of thinking, and these are all meant as different ways to kind of open your mind, what new business models or product innovations could you consider to change the way your business operates so you can act on opportunities that you've identified? And then who else are you connected with? Who are your suppliers that could be called upon to support you? And what changes might be needed from those entities to provide your ongoing requirements? And then thinking environmentally, what are opportunities to create more sustainable practices? I'm not reading word for word, just to guide you through the thinking. And then with all of that, thinking all these things through, what are even other new opportunities, new business opportunities that could arise from this? So what we'd really like is to get your feedback on whether, on how these questions might be helpful, or if we need to be asking something else. And we also note 2 questions that we'd like to put to business advocacy organizations to help them be able to speak up on behalf of their constituents, which have to do with how are the businesses in your network uniquely affected by the situation, and what do you want policymakers and funders to know? So that's like going up to the agency level. So I'll stop and welcome feedback, questions and feedback. And if it helps, because it's hard to see with the items shared, but well.
I just pop the document into chat, and Melissa will send it out. I'm going to stop the share so you can open your own copy.
Oh, good.
The joys of technology allow us to do that now. I know there's a lot of trainers on these calls. Are these the kind of things you're going over with your clients, or that you're some of your center directors or whatever? I might call on you if no one pops up. Do you have other questions to add? I have a question to add. In light
Would you
of
like
this,
to add it?
sure. In light of this week's thing, there's nothing on here about inclusivity or ensuring, sustainability on that kind of tact, and there needs. I feel like there needs to be. This isn't something that only. That we can't do. I know climate change. We want to succeed over climate change, but we need to consider all the bottom lines, right? The people.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to see something added to
that's
that.
important. That's important.
I'm not sure what the question is, but how,
Right. I've just drafted quickly. How can your business demonstrate inclusivity, we'll work on that. But we have a meeting on Tuesday, but thank you.
I know that. Star, you want to pop it? You want to pop in, Star Ron, or Bob? Are you're importing, exporting clients? Are how are they thinking about these things, and how has COVID affected their businesses?
Well, import export in many countries is basically not working very well, especially for smaller companies where you don't have the staff to be flexible. The larger multinationals, of course, they can, throw more resources at it. Small businesses don't seem to be able to do that. So I don't see much import export from small ones that are going through the SBDC at any rate.
Yeah. So have you pivoted, just out of curiosity, Bob, have you pivoted your activities then?
Well, actually, SBDC, we've been spending a lot of time helping people with the PPP loans and the EIDL loans. So my time between export and PPP and EIDL has been somewhere in the neighborhood of, 90% PPP and EIDL and 10% exporting.
So then these questions, you haven't kind of got to this phase yet, or in the help of, this is interesting. We were kind of thinking that, okay, as people start to are reopening, some of them have thought about some of these things, but maybe the clients that are coming to you are not there yet. And Star put into chat that their clients are really struggling, especially the ones that were hit by the looting.
They are struggling, but they're also worried about, there's no place, they're not sure where to export. Half the countries are shut down, right?
So in addition to new,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, somebody else was talking.
No, please.
I may have missed it, but just give you an example of something that maybe you want to put toward the end, which is you know, now that you've thought of how you might want to position, what are the barriers / new requirements? So I'm thinking about my conversation, for example, with the GSA, right? And a buyer said to me, I would never buy hand sanitizer from a distillery because the FDA has a whole bunch of requirements. And, you know, there's a lot of requirements to that particular product. And I know other people that have tried to pivot both commercially, but they stumble on their idea because there are requirements that they just are not aware of or have never thought of. So I wondered if that's something you want to have kind of at the bottom, which is, yeah, you've thought of all this. What are the, what regulations affect or are applicable to, or requirements are applicable to your new idea?
There's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know.
Well, that's always an important
right, but you need to be aware that it's
that's right.
Right, but
what do you need to know more about in order to implement?
yeah, right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I think that's important.
And one of those
you know, who knows? Even the signs, who knows? There may be some requirement that they have to be a certain amount, you know, a certain specifications. I don't know, but I'm just saying a lot of products and services require additional things that you just have not thought about, or as you said, you don't know what you need.
I think that question can also be addressed I think we can be clear about the network, the collaboration question, because somebody I just talked to this morning, they recognized that just to make face shields with 3D printers wasn't enough. So they partnered with UCSF, and then they were assured that they were following the proper, creating the right model, but also giving them directly to frontline workers who would be using them, as opposed to sort of, you know, relying on just, you know, walking out the door and trying to hand them to people.
Yeah. Something Bob said gave me another question. It's like, do you know how to find out get the help that you need? You know, do you know the local business resources? Do you know the local partners? Do you know the local ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem? You're familiar with that, right? Just by asking that question, just is like, oh, there's one out there. You know, the one of the silver linings, at least for a lot of our members, is that this crisis has shown a huge light on the SBA and the SBA program. So the SBDCs and the women's business centers have been seeing huge increases in demand for their services, which is great because they're no longer the best kept secret. So it's like, are you? You know, I also want to put out, I want to bring Eric popped into chat. Eric, if you don't mind, maybe following up with me when you launch your funded neighborhood specific business relief fund, if that's available, is that going to have geographical specificity, or is that going to be open to anybody in California, or like what is that? What does that look like, and how do we get, like, what's the practicality of getting those into the hands of businesses?
We are a place-based organization, and we found that businesses in our community were having difficulty accessing other funds. Even our city funds were too restrictive for a lot of our immigrant and refugee-owned businesses. So we assembled a fund that's specific to City Heights, which is a neighborhood in San Diego, through a local philanthropist and other matching grants. And we're going to launch next week with $200,000 in grant money. We'll be giving grants of up to $10,000, and specifically to address some of these issues. How can you know, what kind of physical improvements do I need to make to operate under the current restrictions? What kind of technology do I need to be able to take phone orders and curbside pickup, and you know, a lot of those issues. And even though it might be temporary, what we're really doing is trying to target what we consider pillar or anchor businesses in our community that are really important to our local economy, that would likely not survive without assistance. So.
Yeah, thanks.
But
Eric, what,
we had to go raise the money and build the program in order
Yeah.
to do it, because nobody else is offering it.
yeah, what group are you with? What
City
organization?
Heights Community Development Corporation.
Oh, great. Oh, welcome. Yeah, we met you guys last year down when we were in San Diego. Great to see you guys again.
Heidi, I don't know if there's a way, I don't know how you might take a poll, but I guess I'm wondering if there's a general way of hearing if people feel, especially getting good questions to add, but are the questions we put out, do you feel that they are helpful?
Let's see if we can launch add a question. I'm going to try this. This is, it's letting me do this. So what do you want your poll to be?
Well, I know if, as we've just, the questions we've laid out, and certainly taking in the additional ones you've added, do you feel these are helpful to the people you work with and to other small businesses?
Okay, so just a simple yes, no, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Add question, save, and let me see if I can launch it.
You are quite the Zoom master. I'm really in admiration.
Oh, no, I'm logged in from another device. Your polling session isn't active. Sorry about that.
Is there a way put like a hand up or something?
Yeah, we could do this anonymously. I can send out we can send out a Google in the follow-up email, Google question, and just if everybody sends it and does it yes, no, and stuff like that. And we had a couple of comments. Ann thinks the questions are fantastic. Star said these are really helpful.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so
oh, they're good. I see
there's a couple people have chimed in.
Great.
Yeah, so if anybody has specific questions they want to add, that would be good too. Carolina, Carolina was able to launch the poll. Excellent.
Right, I just answered, yeah.
Oh, good. So go ahead.
It popped up.
Thank you.
So go ahead and launch the poll.
This will help us figure out how to go forward effectively, just to know that we're on the right track.
Yeah, and we're planning to present these virtually during Small Business Week. So we'll be talking directly to small business owners at that point. So yeah, if you have any ideas or feedback, maybe through Heidi, you could reach out to us to provide any additional recommendations.
Yeah,
I really appreciate this, and
sure.
Greatly appreciate not only Cameo's work, but just being able. Oh, look at that. We have 100%. Yes.
Yay.
Hope you didn't feel put on the spot about
right. Yeah, so it's 2:00, 2:01. I want to thank everybody for their time and thank Ann and Sandy and Ken for coming on and chatting with us. If there's something that you all want to know about, just shoot me an email. I'm pretty sure everybody has my email, but I'll type it into chat anyways. And just so everybody knows, that was it wasn't a false alarm, but it wasn't something that happened to anybody here that was on the call. That was somebody pressed a video you might have seen in chat, but it doesn't matter. It happened somewhere, which is what's kind of disturbing. So anyways, everybody please stay safe and healthy, and have a nice weekend. We thank you for chiming in all the time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.